Okay, so hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of Double G Sports. I am sitting here with Kelsey Rowley, and I'm so excited to introduce her to you guys. She is the communications manager for Spectacor, as well as T1 Entertainment and Sports. Esports has really risen to the top of the sports and entertainment world, and I'm personally interested in esports, and I wanted to talk to Kelsey about her role, as well as talking about a number of things, including women in esports. So thank you so much, Kelsey, for coming along. I'm really honored to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, of course. And I meant to say, I said Spectacor, but Spectacor Gaming, guys. So that includes like Fusion. If there's anyone from the Philadelphia area, I'm sure you've heard of the Fusion Arena, the Philadelphia Fusion team, and Kelsey has a really integral part in all of those things. So I first wanted to ask you, Kelsey, about your role and how you came to have this job.
Sure. So I currently am communications manager, as you said, for Spectacor Gaming and a partner company of Comcast Spectacor, T1 Entertainment and Sports. So I sort of fell into the esports landscape, if you will. Worked with Comcast Spectacor for maybe 5-6 years. Started in HR, actually, which transitioned into a role in internal communications and then really corporate communications. And then, 3 years ago, Comcast Spectacor bought a franchise slot in the Overwatch League. So that was sort of my first foray and kind of dipping my toes, if you will, into a career in esports. So right now I handle communications for both organizations, which includes, for the most part, PR, events, and internal or employee communications.
Were you approached to have this position, or did you pretty much apply for it, or how did that process actually work?
So when my first esports role was with the Fusion, so when we bought the franchise slot back in, what was that, 2017? Yeah, our first season was in 2018. The team was located out in LA for the most part. All the Overwatch League teams were out there, but we, were tasked with building a fan base here in Philadelphia because we are a geo-based franchise. So when I was on the corporate communications team with Comcast Spectacor, they kind of said, hey, we need somebody to throw our first event and really help us launch this team. You're going to do it. So it really, I will be completely honest. I'll never forget when Tim Buckman, who was our SVP of communications at the time, came to us and said, we just bought an esports franchise. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what Overwatch was. He was talking about heroes and, first person shooter and all these things. And it was at first way over my head. So big learning curve for sure. But, a lot of the skills I had with the corporate communications team transferred easily over to esports. You can learn esports. So yeah, that's sort of how it all came to fruition. And then a year ago, we launched T1 Entertainment and Sports, which is a joint venture between Comcast Spectacor and SK Telecom. And they needed a communicator for our Western team. So just that one kind of fell into my lap as well.
That's awesome. So walk us into a standard day in your life, in your role. I mean, now, we're in a pandemic, so I'm sure it looks slightly different to what you're used to in the office. So if you wanted to kind of walk us through either a pandemic day in the life or pre-pandemic, how that looks for you.
Sure. So, pre-pandemic, on top of the day-to-day PR and internal communications functions, a lot of my role revolved around live events, which I miss so much. I'm sure everybody misses them. So, this season was the first year that the Overwatch League was doing home and away matches. So we're really excited for that. We were able to host one here in Philly back in, I think it was February, which was our first Fusion match ever here in Philadelphia. So that was really exciting. But, you know, the pandemic obviously put a pin in that for now. So a day in the life nowadays, it really hasn't changed too much. You know, the esports world has kept going. It's one of the few industries we're really lucky that, you know, we haven't been impacted drastically. And the biggest part is the live event experience, which, you know, fingers crossed will come back in 2021, but we'll sort of see where it goes from there. But a lot of my day-to-day is interacting with media, pitching stories, keeping our employees in the know with various business initiatives that are happening. So yeah, that sort of scratches the surface, I guess.
So I want to kind of jump into being a woman in this field. I know this has been a hot topic for several years now. We're seeing more women jumping into esports, whether it's on Twitch or on a professional level in that sense. And I would love to know, one, your experiences as a woman in esports, if you ever came across any sort of pushback or anything that was adverse, and how you managed to combat that in your own way. And two, just your way of seeing how women are navigating this field, and any advice you might have for any women watching this that are curious as to how they could get into esports.
Sure. So, you know, my personal experience, I've been very fortunate that I really haven't faced a ton of adversity. Our organizations are backed by, you know, Comcast NBCU, which is a Fortune 50 company. So inclusion and diversity is really at the forefront of everything we do. But unfortunately, a lot of women don't have the same experience that I have, especially women who are, you know, professional competitors in this space, streamers, content creators, who might not have the backing and the resources that come from a Fortune 50 organization. There's a lot of adversity and obstacles to overcome. You know, it's no secret that the esports industry is very toxic right now, especially for women. So from our standpoint, we're working hard to make it easier and empower and celebrate women who are already in the space and are also looking to get into the space. And a big way that we've sort of tackled this issue is we launched an initiative called FTW, Play on for the Win in Gaming. We call it For the Women, which is a resource group that organically started internally within our organization. You know, for every 10 people that work in esports, there's only 2 women. So we kind of got to band together and support each other and lift each other up as much as possible. So it started with a small group of us who just put together a networking event to bring together some of the women in the space and have an open and honest conversation, and kind of, you know, snowballed from there to we've hosted forums where we've had women who are super successful in the space come and speak and talk about, you know, ways to enter the esports industry and have an open and honest, candid conversation about a lot of the obstacles that they face. The biggest thing that we're excited for, which we're actually announcing right after this interview, is, well, we already announced it, but we're hosting our first ever all-women Valorant tournament. So, you know, it's sponsored by G Fuel and T1, who put together $10,000 prize pool, which I think was already the biggest prize pool in Valorant. The Riot Games has actually just come on board to make it an official Ignition series with a $50,000 prize pool, which is one of the largest ever in, you know, an all-female tournament. So I feel like we're starting to really make strides and level the playing field a bit in a way. Because, you know, there's so much great female talent out there, and these women want the opportunity to compete against not just other women, but the best men out there as well in their art. So this is just one of our first steps to sort of level the playing field as much as we can and create opportunities for women to, you know, whether it's you want to be a pro player or a content creator, a PR professional, whatever it may be. FTW sort of encompasses all those different facets of the esports industry and partners with different organizations in the space who are making headway.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic news. So I'm really excited for that news to drop and for people to get into it. I know folks are
Us too.
excited, and especially women. My next topic question for you is just based on the rise of esports in today's society. What your thoughts are on that? Because it seems as though, I mean, gaming has been around for decades, but in the past, I want to say 5 years, it's just really come into its own. And we're seeing game shows on TBS. We're seeing all these things happening on Twitch. What are your thoughts about the rise of esports, and where do you predict it will go in the next several years?
Sure. I mean, that's part of what drew me to making a career in esports. Not growing up a gamer per se. There's just so much opportunity in the space. And to be able to be a part of an organization and an industry that's still in its infancy is really empowering to make a difference and really help mold what this industry will look like. I sort of see esports as another form of social media in a way these days, because I mean, you look at kids who go home after school and what's the first thing they do? They throw in their headset and play Fortnite and are talking to their friends that way. Where you and I don't know about you, I would go home and go on AIM and instant message my friends, or MySpace. I'm dating myself a little bit. But it really is a way for kids to connect. And we've seen that now, especially in the pandemic, that it's a great way for people to get that social interaction that they're craving, even if it may be virtual. It's a way to stay in touch with your friends and, have fun while doing it. I'm forgetting the second part of your question, where the industry is going.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the most interesting part of it has been the live events experience. When I first got into the industry, it was hard for me to wrap my head around, wait a minute, people tune in to watch other people play video games. And, it's really no different than watching the best of the best in basketball or football or ice skating, whatever it may be. So now that big organizations are starting to back these esports teams, I think we're going to see the live event experience just get better and better. I mean, September, we hosted the Overwatch League Grand Finals here in Philadelphia, and there's really nothing like it. I mean, Tucker says this all the time, and it's true. It's like a cross between an EDM concert and a NHL playoff game. Like, it's electric, and these fans just go absolutely insane over it. It's incredible to watch. So for anybody who, is still having trouble wrapping their head around why are people tuning in to watch other people play video games, I encourage you to go to one of these live events and see what it's like and experience the atmosphere and the energy that surrounds it.
What was it like to go to your first live event? I mean, what were the thoughts running into your head when you stepped out in that arena and you saw people just really going crazy over, like you said, watching other people playing video games?
Right. I'll never forget the moment. It was insane, because that first season of the Overwatch League, the Fusion actually made it all the way to grand finals. Mm-hmm. Played their entire season over in Los Angeles. And that venue was a lot smaller. So when we made it, we were first of all like, oh my God, I can't believe we did this. We were the underdogs, and it already felt like we won by making it. But it was a packed Barclays Center. It was just incredible to see the passion of the fans who really love this sport, and they love the players. It was just incredible. I had no idea how big it was. And that moment for me made it very real and made me realize that this is only going to get bigger from here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now that you're working in this field, do you find yourself playing video games more, or are you still kind of like, I'm not, I don't consider myself a gamer? Like, what?
I try. I'm horrible. My skill I think the last video game I played was like Mario Party 3 on Nintendo 64, like when I was, I don't know, 13, 14. So, you know, I have a basic understanding of every game just because, you know, on the Fusion side, we obviously only play Overwatch, but on the T1 side, we have teams or content creators or players in almost every title. But no, everybody makes fun of me. Like, I'm kind of the outcast on my team because everybody plays games. But no, I have not gotten any better at video games, even though I work in them all the time.
Do you have an inside scoop on how they exactly prepare for these tournaments? How many hours a day do they play these games, and what goes into getting on that worldwide stage for them?
Yeah, I mean, the training is really no different than any other traditional sport. At the Fusion, they train for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Where they're practicing with their team. They'll also have one-on-one sessions with their coaches. They have VOD review, which is where you essentially sit down and review your gameplay, and you know, our coaches walk you through. You could have approached this situation differently. Here's how you can improve next time. So beyond, you know, the training that happens in our training room, we also have a huge emphasis on, you know, mental health, which is a big obstacle in esports, just because, you know, you're grinding so many hours a day and putting in so much time. And these players are so accessible, really. You know, when you're streaming on Twitch, anybody can talk to you on social media. So, you know, there is a lot of criticism and sometimes hate that can come their way. So we also work with them on how to manage a lot of that stress and some of that, you know, anxiety that can come with that space. But, you know, we like to keep them healthy. We make sure that they eat well, work out when they can. So it really is more than just, you know, logging on and putting in the hours on your PC. We're trying to build a better lifestyle for these competitors as well.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up the topic of mental health and nutrition, because it's something that I don't see a lot of people talking about when it comes to esports. I think we have this image of the players just sitting down and playing video games for 9, 10, 11 hours and being a bit slovenly. If you could go even deeper into nutrition and the exercise regimen that they have, I'm sure our viewers would love to know more about that.
Yeah, of course. You know, on the Fusion side, Poco is one of our star players, and he's done a great job of getting a lot of our other players, you know, in the gym working out, because it is a great way to relieve that stress. On top of that, T1 side, we've actually hired a sports psychiatrist to talk through a lot of the pressures that our teams face. And you know, obstacles that any other athlete faces. Again, it's the most eye-opening thing to me was that these really are athletes. You know, you see big brands like Nike coming in, who have dealt with some of the best athletes to ever exist. You know, they're a partner of T1 now, and they're helping us build out programs to get our players at the top of their game.
That's fascinating, really fascinating stuff. So what advice would you have for those people who, you know, are either considering going to college for esports or like to do gaming, or just kind of figuring out what they'd like to do in that respect?
Sure. You know, the biggest thing for me is it's great to see colleges and universities building programs around sports. So if you're diehard and want to pursue a career in esports, that's a great route to go. But I would consider, you know, whether it's a dual major or a minor, just some other skill set that will make you stand out. Because when I get applicants, the majority of them are diehard esports fans. know the landscape. But, you know, what sets somebody apart is when they have a really niche skill that they're the best at. So, for example, in my world, I look for somebody who's a fantastic writer. So my recommendation would be, you know, to get that basic knowledge of the esports landscape. If you decide to go to a university that offers that program, that's a great option, but also consider coupling that with a degree that makes you a little bit more versatile, or, you know, the best in your field at whatever it is you want to do. So if you can start to think about what sort of path you want in esports, whether it's on the production side or, you know, finance exists in esports, communications, there's so many routes to go, with skills that are really transferable outside of, you know, what it takes to build an esports team.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I like that. How important is it for Fusion to really, I guess, be a leader or a supporter rather in movements such as Black Lives Matter? And we're living in a really politically charged time right now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, having inclusion top of mind and supporting, you know, our Black colleagues and our Black communities, our Black fans, is really our number one priority right now. Mm-hmm. When, I don't even know, like tragic, heartbreaking events like this happen, we want to make sure that we're one of the first organizations to come out and stand in solidarity with, you know, our communities that are really hurting right now, and it's frustrating for everyone. So I'm really fortunate to work with a team that is super passionate about this space. You know, our leadership team they're actually the first ones to come to me and say, we need to put a statement out on this. They take a first stab at what that statement draft looks like. So, you know, I'm just really proud of our team, for traditionally being one of the first esports orgs to come out and, you know, stand for Black Lives Matter. But it goes beyond that. It's one thing to put out a statement. What really matters is putting our money where our mouth is and creating change where we can. So we've actually put together a diversity, equity, and inclusion council, which is working behind the scenes to action plan and create opportunities and programs for underserved communities to be represented and have opportunities to get into the esports industry, because we know it is not representative of, you know, what our country looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And particularly being in Philadelphia with the demographics in the city. I mean, I'm from Philadelphia, so I know it's
yep.
You know, having those opportunities are really important for the community that I'm a part of. So once again,
of course,
yeah, thank you for definitely being transparent with that as well. What I also want to ask is about T1 Entertainment in Sports, because I know that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's based in South Korea. I would like to know, have you been to South Korea and how your relationship with T1 is, irrespective of with Comcast?
Sure. So Comcast Spectacor entered into its joint venture with SK Telecom almost a year ago. So we're approaching our 1-year anniversary of the newly branded, newly launched T1. And, you know, Comcast Spectacor entered that joint venture because they were really looking to diversify their portfolio. You know, we know that video games come and go, especially the popularity of various esports. So, you know, we had our investment in Overwatch, which we're confident in, but we also wanted to break out into some of these other markets and other titles where we knew there was a huge opportunity. So on the T1 side, you know, our headquarters are based in Seoul. Unfortunately, I have not had an opportunity to get out there yet because the pandemic put a little bit of a wrench in those plans. But we just built this beautiful new HQ over there that houses a bunch of our teams and our employees. So I'm really excited to get over there whenever, we're allowed to travel again, but might be a little bit. But my role with T1 is to handle PR and employee communications for our Western teams. So it's been really interesting during the pandemic, actually, because Riot Games released the new title Valorant. And that, I want to say that released in, I'm gonna get the timeline messed up here, but like maybe March or April. And we knew that it was a first-person shooter game, and a lot of the skills transfer over from this other game called CS:GO. So it was pretty incredible that we were doing the recruiting and really building a team all from our homes. Typically, you travel and meet the players and see them in person, and even the teammates have all been at home for this whole sort of launch of this new title that we assume is going to be one of the biggest esports in the world eventually. So that's been a really interesting piece for me, doing the PR and launching this team all from my home during this pandemic.
That sounds so exciting. And I'm sure you'll get to go to South Korea at some point, and that'll be amazing. So I have no doubts about that. Speaking of...
Yeah, I've never... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead. You're fine.
I was just gonna say, I haven't been to Asia yet. So
wow.
Once I get I plan on bopping around a couple different places.
Same. I mean, Japan is at the top of my list personally, so
yes.
Go there. Where do you guys, 2021, we don't know what's going to happen, but do you guys have plans in place for live events in the future, and how have those discussions been?
Sure. So we had our groundbreaking for Fusion Arena pretty much right before the pandemic hit. So plans are still on to build it, but we're definitely reevaluating what that experience is going to look like for our fans, as are, stadiums and arenas around the world. Everybody is sort of a big question mark on, what the live event experience is going to look like, and when it will return. So, there's a lot of discussions happening for both Fusion Arena and even the Comcast Spectacor owns the Wells Fargo Center here in Philly as well. So, it's one of those things that we're taking day by day and seeing how things sort of unfold. But I can tell you, I can't wait to have live events again. I miss them so much.
Me too. I hear that. So my absolute last question for you, Kelsey, is how are the players on the Fusion, how are they coping during this time? Are they finding themselves doing more gaming, less gaming? What does that look like for each team member?
Sure. So, the team moved here at the beginning of this year, and so excited for a home and away schedule. We had our first event here in Philadelphia, packed house, and we got to experience the home field advantage for the first time ever. I mean, I know we're probably biased, but I think Philly's the best sports city in the world. So it was really exciting to see how ready and excited our fans were to have that live event experience. And they were also super excited to travel the world. Our schedule had us going to London and Paris, Toronto, Vancouver. Better believe I was getting my ticket to Paris. But it is what it is. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to really be able to see just how successful the home and away model is, because that's what sort of separates the Overwatch League from other leagues. But I think our players have dealt with it really the best that they can. It was super interesting moving their training spaces into their own apartments even when this all first started happening. But as soon as the some of the restrictions lifted, we were sure to like get outside and do outdoor activities and bonding activities with the team. Just because it can get, not just for our players, but everyone, a little lonely and it's tough. We were in isolation for however many weeks. But, they've had a killer season. They play this weekend to hopefully, fingers crossed, secure their ticket to grand finals, which is going to be in Asia, October. So tune in this weekend. And, they've really taken what could have been a really unfortunate scenario, and I think they've made the best of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And kudos to them and to you for, just doing the work that you do in this field. It's exciting. I see a lot of great things happening for Philadelphia Fusion in the near future. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out to have this interview with me. I usually end each interview with encouraging guests to put out any notices, any events happening in the near future, and to also just plug their projects and their social media. So this is your time to do just that.
Okay. Tune into the FTW Summer Showdown this weekend. It's the first ever all-women Valorant tournament happening September 11th through 13th. $50,000 is on the line. So tune in and follow us on social. My personal social is, Kels_Rowley on Twitter. And thank you so much for having me. This was great. I'm usually, the one in the back end prepping other teammates for interviews. So it's weird to be subject, but this was fun.
Oh, I likewise. Thank you so much, Kelsey, and I'm sure you'll be interviewed many more times to come. So thank you so much.
We'll see. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thanks guys for watching, and tune in for more great content here on Double G Sports.